listening to We Watch Movies.
I'm Ava.
And I'm Jenna.
And we watch movies. So this week we watched Worth, which came out on Netflix recently. I don't remember exactly which day. I think the initial release was at some sort of film festival in some capacity or something. Because it said, or maybe we're just like really behind and this wasn't actually a new release, but I think it was. But it says January.
Came out at Sundance.
Okay, yeah, but it originally came out January 24th of 2020, but it just aired on Netflix and stuff. And it's
on the 3rd.
Yes, on the 3rd. Thank you. It's currently sitting at a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. With a 90% of people liking the movie. It stars, who does it star? Michael Keaton and Stanley Tucci, and a bunch of other people. I don't know if I recognize any of the other people, but like I definitely recognize those people because like we got Vulture and we got Caesar Flickerman. Also, Michael Keaton was also Batman. I just haven't seen him as Batman yet, which is unfortunate because I want to. But anyways, guys, so this is about it takes place right after 9/11, and it's about this legal firm trying to make the victim compensation fund. And they're trying to figure out, what's fair compensation for all these people who lost loved ones and stuff. And then they're like, oh, well, every case is different, so it's hard to make something that's actually fair. And it's a deep dive into just the legal side and the emotional side, but most, like, it's kind of where law and, like, morality, I guess, meet. And it's an interesting side of the story that I don't think we hear about too much. So I really like that that's the angle that they approached. Because I would have never thought, like, if I was like, oh, I want to make a movie about 9/11, I would have never thought that I was gonna pick the victim compensation fund as, like, the main premise. But I think it really worked well. I personally really like this movie. I don't know where Jenna stands. So, you know what? Jenna, do you want to tell us your initial reactions?
I also thought it was very good. I thought it was well done. And when someone says, we're going to watch a movie about 9/11, you don't always think of the legal side of things or the economic side of things. Or just, the movie taking place in America, like, a year, 2 years after the fact. But this is what that movie was. And I think it's definitely understated for kind of taking the less, I don't want to say popular approach, but like the less seen approach in different forms of media. But I think for that it benefited it because this is kind of a story that you don't really hear that much about. And even I've heard of like the Victim Compensation Fund, and I remember like the battle in like 2019 for the victims who have been struggling with like the health effects after the fact. And so that was mostly the extent of my knowledge of the compensation fund. So this was also definitely interesting to learn more about in this way.
Yeah, and I mean, also, like, for people who are born after 2001, or even people who were born in 2000, for people who were born, like, after, like, 95 or something, it's kind of, like, foreign. I mean, obviously people who were born before it happened lived through it in some extent, but personally I don't remember anything from like before 5 years old. But it's like this, 9/11 has always been this like far away concept. I don't know if this applies to other people our age and stuff, or if it's just me being strange. But like I know what happened, but like, it's this big traumatic event for like everybody in America that I just don't really have an understanding of, and I don't have the experience to like be like, oh, I know how it felt when I saw that on the news or something, because I don't. I've seen like videos of it and stuff, but it's all like third hand, I guess, experience. And I've seen like, obviously we've seen in documentaries stuff that like depicts like what happened and everything. But then this movie had this this they kept coming back to the victims, and the victims speaking directly to these lawyers about, you know, their loved ones, right? They said, this is what happened, this person called me as the building was coming down, stuff like that. And these really emotional sequences of just like these victims just telling their stories. Like, that was the most poignant part of the movie. It's just these moments of just these people in grief. And that's kind of like that's something that I've never experienced, and a lot of us have never experienced. And I think it was really effective, I guess, in kind of touching people that maybe weren't there. Because obviously, like, if you were there and you see just a video of like what happened, it's gonna bring back memories or something. But when you put it the way that this movie did, it's definitely, or at least I thought it was more poignant for people who don't have that kind of experience. And I don't know, I think it hit home a little bit more than like a lot of the other stuff that I've seen that tells this kind of story.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason it was able to hit home, like, as you said, like, as someone who didn't necessarily live through it, I've still, like, seen images and videos of what happened, and I've learned about it through different periods in school, and we've talked about 9/11, but I don't think any of that can really replicate actually living through it in any capacity and witnessing it firsthand somehow, like whether it was in person or just on the TV while it was happening, and then just the time after the fact. But what this movie did really well was that it just showed different individuals trying to come to terms with what happened and all of their different emotional responses and connections and reactions to the attack, which made it almost like a little more, I don't want, like, relatable, I guess, or just easier to understand and kind of like really feel where they're coming from, because it takes something that can be so like just unable to just really like compare it to anything else you felt, and you can at least like see like the human side of things and how it affects all of these different people.
Yeah, and I think another thing that this movie really helps to put into perspective is just kind of how long this problem went on. Like, they were still dealing with the economic effects and everything. Like, well, probably much longer than this, but their deadline wasn't until like December of 2003. I remember they were like, oh, 3 days from deadline, or no, it was like 3 weeks actually at the time. It was like 3 weeks from deadline, December something 2003, and I like looked at the screen and I was like, hey, I existed then. But I never realized that like people were still dealing with like the actual effects. Well, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it. I mean, obviously it's an event that has affected us until this day. Like, we're never like not gonna have like feel the effects of it, but like such like people weren't compensated for like years, and they were still like they were being they were kind of being procrastinators, right? Because they like pulled 70% or something of their goal like right out of thin air in like 2 days before the deadline, when they had like 3 years. But no, I mean, I respect it, but but yeah, I mean this really, I think this movie put a lot into perspective, and I don't know how much of it was dramatized, because probably a lot of it was just like, you know, one of our first movies that we did on this channel was Trial of the Chicago 7, which was kind of a similar vibe, I guess. It was like it was a political movie about something in our past, and they dramatized it a lot, but it did help kind of put the event into perspective, I guess. And you know, this is I feel like they probably dramatized this one about the same, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of like legal films are like, whether it be like a courtroom drama or a more like investigative piece, I feel like they're all kind of dramatized, because law, I guess, just maybe isn't as interesting as maybe we make it out to be. But I think you can't really tell a like impactful story in like 2 hours or less without like dramatizing some things and making it into your own film and taking those liberties, or else people might just get bogged down by legalese, and you kind of need to make it a movie to make it something that people can relate to and like really understand as a piece of media and art, rather than just these are the things that happened.
And I think something about just like the actual legal side and everything that translated really well into this movie was kind of how you could kind of see both sides of the argument too. You know, it's so often that like you'll be watching a movie or something and one side is like, oh no, they're so blatantly wrong, like it's obviously we gotta follow the heroes, right? But I mean, in this one, I mean, other than like Quinn, who sucked, there were really like specific protagonists and well, I mean, there were protagonists, but there weren't like actual like heroes versus villains, you know? It was like everybody was kind of trying their best, and obviously, you know, Mr. Feinberg came around to like a different approach towards the end of it, but I firmly believe like throughout the whole thing he was trying his best, and I saw where he was coming from with the whole I don't know what to do, I'm trying right now, but what I do is not satisfy the people, but also my hands are kind of like tied with certain laws and like how we have to give some sort of formula to everything. And then I see Charles, what's his last name? Charles something? The guy who ran Fix the Fund, what was his name? Wolf!
Will Google
Wolf. Charles Wolf. So, and then...
His name was Wolf?
Yeah, Charles Wolf.
Not what I was gonna guess.
So Charles Wolf, he was here saying, you know, every person is deserving of, you know, respect and needs to be given kind of a fair treatment. Like, you can't just put a price on somebody's life based off of a statistic and everything. And, you know, you see both sides of the argument, and it really, like, it's easy to just, like, think, oh, just pay people and the problems will go away. But then if you actually like think about how difficult a situation like that is, like the question he poses at the beginning of the movie, like, what is life worth, like, with a number, it's something that you just, like, you think there's a number, and, like, you know, like, obviously there's like life insurance and everything, and like you're pretty sure that there's like a number somewhere, but like it's never a number that you want to actually like say out loud, you know. And nobody would ever want you to be like, oh, how much is this person's life worth in money, because you don't like it's not something that you ever want to have to think about, you know. And it's just like an impossibly difficult problem that this guy was put into, and like, or that the entire nation was put into, you know. And it's difficult on both ends, I think, of the argument, and that's kind of how it was really it just translated well, I think, to a thoughtful conflict for the movie.
Yeah, and that whole kind of central message, and I guess was introduced in really the first scene of this movie, where Mr. Feinberg is teaching his class and he's running through the outrageous example at the farm and like what is a life worth. And I thought that was just a really great like first scene to really hammer home like this is what the movie is preaching, and like this is like the main idea, without like hammering it over the head of the audience, is like pay attention to this. It was I really appreciated that scene because it also introduces us to our main character and what is he like, so it gives us a good starting point for how he might change throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know, I like it when movies give me a lot to think about, but like it's like somewhere between like giving me a lot to think about and then also like going down easy as you're watching it, though, because like sometimes movies make it too hard to understand it. Like, it's like, think about this and this and this when you're actually watching it. But like, if you can leave a movie thinking about something, I think that's really good. That's a really good sign. Like, if you can watch it easily and follow the plot and understand everything, which I think that was also a place where this movie excelled, because they were they were doing a lot of legal stuff. I don't have a law degree, but I understood what was going on. And I was able to follow the movie pretty easily. But, you know, I'm leaving here with a big moral, like, philosophical question, you know? And I think that's really, it just really attests to the fact that this was, like, a good movie.
Yeah, and it's always good when you're watching a movie. If it makes you think too much while you're actually watching it, then you're probably not doing it right, because you still want the audience engaged with the movie and actively, like, watching it. But if they're too distracted by thinking about the things that you want them to think about later, or just confused about what's happening overall, they're not watching the movie anymore, and you're losing your audience. So this movie did a good job of, like, keeping things interesting, keeping, like, the audience, like, understanding in the loop with what was happening, but also leaving them with something to think about after they finished watching the movie.
Oh my god, he was Beetlejuice.
Who was
Michael
Beetlejuice?
Keaton was Beetlejuice. I didn't realize that. But, like, it makes sense now. I was just, like, looking at his movies and stuff that he was in. Because there was a movie that I saw that kind of felt, so this particular movie felt like kind of a combination of Trial of the Chicago 7 and then Spotlight. And Spotlight did have Michael Keaton in it. That's a very good movie. I recommend that everybody watches it. You too, Jenna. You need to watch it.
I've seen that one.
That
Ava.
was so loud.
I'm very excited. You can't give me homework because I actually saw the movie.
Are you, like, screaming into your microphone right now?
No, it just got too close to my mouth.
Oh, that scared me. Oh my god. You were like, I've seen it! But yeah, no, that was, I think that this is kind of like a love child between Trial of the Chicago 7 and Spotlight. But also I like how, I guess not necessarily Beetlejuice, but, like, for most of the characters that I've seen Michael Keaton as, like, I didn't see his Batman performances, and I've seen Beetlejuice, but it doesn't really apply here. But he like, he has this, like, very specific, like, flair that he brings to every single one of his characters, and it's, like, very specifically him, you know? And, like, you know, it's like, it's somehow he made a supervillain in Spider-Man and a newspaper editor and this like, what was it called, like, special master or something. He made them all, like, master, completely different, but also, like, feel the same in a way. And I don't know, and then like, you have, like, Stanley Tucci over here who went from, like, this character, and then he's also, like, Caesar Flickerman, which is, like, a completely different direction, but he also kind of has the same flair. I don't know, it's just, like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just think it's interesting.
I think Michael Keaton was also the McDonald's guy in The Founder, which was the movie about McDonald's. I don't know why I've seen that movie, but I have. But yeah, like, that, thinking of that movie, if we're just gonna add another example, he definitely has his own flair, and I definitely think the acting was very well done in this movie. Because, well, he definitely has that, like, signature Keatonism that he brings to every movie. I think it was, like, appropriately subdued. Yeah. So, like, it definitely came through in his character, but it also wasn't, like, overpowering in, like, a weirdly distracting way.
Yeah, like, I don't know how to describe it, because I'm not saying that he doesn't have range, because he does. But it's like, he has a very broad range when he, like, plays different characters. but he also he plays them differently and the same at the same time. And like, I don't know, it's kind of like how an artist has like a signature, you know? But they like or maybe this is a better maybe this, like, for all you music nerds out there, he's like playing different songs, right? But in the same key.
You never go and watch a movie with Michael Keaton in it and go, wait a minute, who is that guy? Because it's always recognizably him.
Mm-hmm. That might be just a better way to put it. But continuing down the cast, Stanley Tucci, I'm looking at, like, I clicked on him, and I'm seeing in the news feed right now, he, like, just recently revealed that he had cancer 3 years ago. And he beat it, so good for him.
Good job, Stanley Tucci.
I mostly know him from, Hunger Games. He plays, like I said, Caesar Flickerman. Caesar Flickerman is weird, okay? Because he's, like, weird and, like, nice at first, but then also he's, like, in, like, Catching Fire particularly, he is something about him's, like, really scary. And it's just, I don't know, I think he was able to, transmit that pretty well in his portrayal of the role.
The duality of man.
Yeah. He, like, I don't know if he necessarily has the same, like, consistent flair that Keaton does, but he makes the same face every once in a while. His, like, kind of, like, this face that he makes when he's, like, speaking to somebody, and, like, his character is just, like, in blatant disagreement with them, but wants to let them finish. It's, like, this face that's, like, wow, you're really stupid. Do you want to continue speaking? And it's, like, this very specific face. And I saw him use it a couple times in this one when he was talking to Feinberg, and he kind of used it in, I think it was Catching Fire, when they started to, like, hold hands and stuff, and, like, he started to turn, like, evil. I don't know, maybe it's just because it's his face, but that is something that I have noticed. Maybe that's his little signature. It's his own form of Keatonism. It's his I'm judging you face, but you can finish, you know?
I'm trying to think of another version that I can use for Tucci's name. Tucciology.
Keatonism and Tucciology. Oh my god, wait. Oh, what'd you go to college for? Oh, I double majored in Keatonism and Tucciology.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. He was in Robots. I never watched Robots. I just know that the thing looks kind of freaky. The poster.
That's the animated movie,
yeah.
Right? I think I've seen it. Maybe not all of it, but it was on TV a couple of times when I was a kid.
You know, one time, just, like, kind of off topic, but back to Michael Keaton. This was, like, a day or something after I had rewatched Spider-Man Homecoming, and so this kind of random, but I have very vivid dreams, and they're very weird dreams, and in this one particular dream, I was, like, walking down my driveway at night, and I ended up at my neighbor's house, and Ghostface was there, but then Michael Keaton drove up in a white van and fought off Ghostface. And so, just really quick, I wanted to say, Michael Keaton, if you're listening, thank you for keeping me from getting murdered in my dreams, because I have not died in my dreams yet, and I'm really proud of that win streak. So, thank you.
You know, just Michael Keaton out there. Maybe he's not really Batman, but he is Dream Batman.
I don't know when it was. It wasn't. It wasn't initially when the Mobius trailer came out. It was like later, because I didn't know that the trailer came out until later in the year. So it was not super recent, but like kind of. I don't remember when it was. I saw the Mobius trailer a little bit after it came out, but a while ago. And Michael Keaton's in that. He's at the end of the trailer. You know, the end of the trailer is where they put all like the zingers, right? Like that's where in the No Way Home trailer, that's where they put Doc Ock and stuff, and like all these things. So that's like when you know what they're showing you is important, and he's at the end of it, and I'm like, is this like putting his Vulture into the Morbius movie? And like, I know this is a completely different movie that I'm talking about. It's just that I want to gush about this a little bit, because personally I really like Vulture. I really like his portrayal of Vulture. I like that character a lot. One of my favorite standalone Marvel villains. I will attest to that. It's definitely one of my favorite standalone villains. And that would be pretty epic if he got to come back. And I know that's not an MCU movie, which is why it's confusing. I'm gonna stop talking about this now so we can get back on track with the other movie. But yeah.
I should watch Venom.
You haven't watched Venom?
No. I meant to when it came out, but I just never got around to it.
Okay, well, you need to watch it before Let There Be Carnage comes out.
When does that come out? Like October,
I think so.
right? Is October 12th the date? I'm gonna find out.
October 15th, you were wrong!
I was close! I had the right week!
Ooh, story by Tom Hardy as well? Okay, sir, okay. But anyways, yeah, you need to watch Venom. I really liked Venom. But anyways, these are not the movies we came to talk about today, because we didn't watch them today. Anyways, I was gonna ask you.
Oh boy.
Soundtrack. Thoughts?
Lots of opera.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was an interesting choice. I think it definitely fit the mood. The opera was the only thing that stood out to me, so sorry about that. I feel like that happens every week. You ask me for like this in-depth thing about the soundtrack, and then I don't have an answer for you.
Unprepared stamp, Jenna.
But, yeah. Well, it's not because I'm unprepared for the question. It's just that if the soundtrack doesn't stick out to me when I watch the movie, I generally don't go back and listen to it. But I think the opera was definitely like an interesting choice, especially because of how, like, I guess the subject matter and I guess like how dramatic the case kind of was in terms of law. It definitely, I don't know, it definitely had like an operatic feel in the movie. So it was interesting. I don't know if that's like a real life thing, that like any of the real life people in this movie actually listen to opera, but I thought it was a good choice. It definitely fit.
I did like it. I was thinking a lot about when he was listening to classical music on the bus, it was reminding me of when I was in like 5th and 6th grade. I was really quirky, guys. I listened to Beethoven exclusively on the bus. And it was like giving me flashbacks to 5th and 6th grade. But like I think it was good that he was kind of consistent, and it gave him something to relate to Charles with, because they were both kind of interested in opera and everything. This is different than some ways that classical music has been used in other movies that I really like. Is I like it when they're used like in contrast, you know, because classical music is generally something that's pretty like peaceful or something, or like pretty, and then they use it with something like dark or like messy. or like brutal or something. Like there's a lot of like murder stuff that I've seen in movies, and they'll put it with like classical music, and you know, they did something kind of like that when they had Feinberg on the bus listening to his classical music, and then he looks out the window and he sees the explosion and everything. I don't think were they playing the music at that time? I don't know.
He had been listening to it, and you're watching everyone in the train car start to get the news, and he's mostly unaware until people like start rushing by him. And I think he takes his headphones off, but I don't know if the music is still playing to the audience at that point.
I did really like that scene. I don't know if like in real life he like I don't know if in real life he was unaware at first, but I think that was a really interesting choice if he like if it was just a choice that they made, because you know, I feel like there's a lot of moments like that when you're kind of in your own bubble, and then like you slowly realize something's going on, especially like on that day. Like there were other people in the movie who were talking about like, oh, at first your initial thought is, oh, those poor people, and then you realize it's happening to you and stuff like that. And I feel like that was really interesting. And it's also kind of like how later on, when he's just working on the legal stuff, he's also in his own little bubble, his own world of numbers, right? And then he starts to realize that there are people actually involved, and it kind of mirrors that like bus ride. He's realizing what's actually going on and decides that he needs to act. Rather than just like existing in his bubble, you know? And I think that, I don't know if that's what they intended, but I respect it if they did.
That is a very good point, and I really like that. I think it's definitely interesting, especially because they set up a lot in the beginning of this movie, and then really the plot like really starts to take off when he decides to become like special master for this compensation fund. And I think they did a lot to set up this movie without like falling onto like the usual things you would expect in a movie that centers around 9/11. Like it really, like, in terms of like actually showing the event, it doesn't really do that much, and I kind of prefer that like focus, because the core of this movie is focusing on the people, not so much the attack. So I think keeping it mainly focused on the people throughout, and like showing in subtle and explicit ways like what they're going through, it really set up some interesting things they could do later on in the movie.
Yeah, I really do like that this was more personally focused. It's like I mentioned before, there have been like documentaries after documentaries and like coverage like up the wazoo about 9/11 and everything. And you know, you don't connect to a story as much if it's just like, here are things exploding and falling and people screamed. You know, it's you connect to a story when you're hearing about, oh, you know, 2 years later these people are still crying over their loved ones who died alone in a fiery building or something. I don't know. And like that, I feel like that's really definitely like how this movie was able to hit home as well as it did. And it definitely gave me a more of an appreciation for everything that happened that day.
Yeah, because like the grief that these people are going through, I feel like, of course, like as human beings, like we can understand like, oh, so many people lost people, and like we learn throughout like learning about the actual event, like the different like things that people experienced as individuals. But I think it also doesn't always like hit home that like the amount of people that are going through this type of trauma and grief. So I think this movie did a good job of trying to exemplify that in different ways, but also not stretching itself too thin to like feel impersonal.
And I mean, it kind of like just showed sort of how America, like, grieved together, you know? And, like, if you, like, squint at it, you can almost put it up with, like, the stages of grief, you know? Because at first it was, like... At first there was, like, obviously the denial, you know, I mean, there were a couple of people talking about, oh, we didn't realize it was actually happening until it did, but then you think about how, at first, Mr. Feinberg thought, oh, these people are numbers, we can do it with this formula, blah, 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 it'll be fine. Like, there's not much we can do. And then, obviously, there's the anger, which was, like, the people being like, we hate your formula, fix the fund, and stuff. And then you have, like... You know, I mean, there's a lot of depression. You know, you have, like, Quinn and his bargaining stuff, and then finally you have everybody signing on and accepting what happened. So if you, like, think about it really hard, you can, like, get a better lineup, I guess, than what I just gave. But it was kind of like, you could definitely sort of see the process of just this huge group of people kind of grieving together. Not necessarily, like, with each other, but, like, simultaneously.
Yeah, I like that way of looking at it. I can never remember the 5 different stages of grief. So whenever there is a movie about grief, I always feel really silly because I never recognize the different stages, because I'm just like... I know the first one is anger and the last one's acceptance.
The first one's
I don't
denial.
know the rest of the grief sandwich. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot the first one you said. No, I do know that the first one is denial. I don't... Anger's in there somewhere. Bargaining, gone out of my head.
Yeah. But no, I mean... those are the stages of grief for a reason, and I don't know if this movie intended to structure their story that way, but if they were just telling the story of how a country grieved after a serious, like, terrible terrorist attack, it makes sense that it would kind of line up. And I mean, like, I don't know, I guess that's just, like, psychology in action or whatever. But I don't know. I think that kind of... that at least points in the direction of this movie being reasonable, I guess, with its storyline. I don't... like I said, I'm not entirely sure what they dramatized, because I haven't gotten around to reading, like, one of those what it got right, what it didn't articles or something. Because, just, like, for the record, I, like, don't research these movies that much, before we actually record. Usually I just, like, watch them and then I come straight to recording, so it's, like, fresh in my brain, but I don't really have much history background on this, like, particular topic or, like, other topics, so, like, I don't know how funds work necessarily, and I don't entirely know every detail of whether or not they got it right or anything. But I mean, it stands to reason that a good amount of this is reasonable, I guess, because, you know, it's kind of it kind of just makes sense, maybe? I don't know.
So you sent me a
Yes.
text, I presume, once you finish watching it, about the
Oh, yeah.
little text ending. Do you want to explain what you meant by
Okay, so the thing is, every time we watch a movie that's, like, a true story or based on a true story, they all, like, every single one of them ends with, like, text. And, like, I understand where they're coming from. Like, they want to tell you what happened afterwards, like, to these real people, but also, like, I don't know. I'm just, like, everything does it, man. I feel like if you want that part of the story to become apparent to the audience so badly, then, like, work it into your story. Otherwise, like, if people have questions about, oh, what happened to Mr. Feinberg after the events of this movie, I mean, he's not, like, a secret person. You know, you can Google that stuff. I get it if it's information that you can't really find on the internet and stuff, but, like, it just bugs me, because it's like, oh, here's this whole story, we told it so magnificently, and we showed you this amazing heartfelt tale, and we brought it to life for you, and all of this amazing stuff. But also, here's all the information that we didn't bother to put in here, and now you have to read it. And I was like, I do think that I didn't mind them saying, like, all the different cases that this group worked on. They're like, oh, these people did all this, and like, there's sometimes when it's, like, okay, but I get sick of it sometimes. I just want people to like, find another way to tell all the information that you want to than tagging on some, like, extra text at the end. I don't know.
And I guess part of it is that you have to ask yourself, like, what... I just realized what I'm about to say in the context of this movie, but what is the information you're putting at the end of the movie worth in the long game of things? Yeah, see, I... Not how I meant that, but oh well. Because I liked how they ended this movie with him on the beach, where he wanted to build his new home. And I think if you had just left it at that note, I would have been perfectly okay with that. I didn't need the rest of the information. I mean, while I don't think it took away from the movie, I feel like I would have much rather have been left in that spot where they left me than with all of that other new information, because I don't think it really gave anything more to the movie other than making me think, once I looked at the list of all the different things he had worked on for compensation funds after 9/11, all it made me think about was, wow, so many horrible things have happened in the past few years.
I mean, like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. But it's like, I some are definitely worse than others. I think that I remember not really liking the one in Hillbilly LG. I remember what is it? Trial of the Chicago 7. It's like it's extra text at the end was like, this person he did something for a year and then he went to prison for the rest of his life. This guy died of an overdose. This guy, I was like, what? I mean, like, okay, but did we need to know that? Oh, it's like, oh, this guy just became a teacher. This guy did, and I was like, okay, like, all of the things you're telling me are either boring or sad. You don't necessarily need to add that. I mean, we don't, like, with a regular movie, right? If we take, like, I don't know, what did we do last time? We did, He's All That.
Yes.
Okay, well, they kind of did this, but not in text version. But let's say they had at the end, let's say after the movie ended, they were, like, in text, they were like, after this, Paget went on to have 2 kids, and then she quit YouTube and became a stay-at-home mother, and Cameron, he traveled the world but developed alcoholism and died in his bed at the age of 32 or something like that. Like, we don't need to know the whether it's like a significant event or a sad event or just a completely irrelevant event in a character's life after the show ends. Like, with fiction, I mean, after the story ends, obviously the character's story doesn't end necessarily, because, like, you can give sequels and everything, but once the finale has concluded on, like, a show, or you've reached the last book of a series, right? They don't say, I mean, some of them give you a little bit of an epilogue, right? But they don't say, and after that, this happened, and this happened, and that happened, and then that happened, and then they died, you know? Or like, something like that, and it bugs me when movies do it just because it's a true story. And I mean, I get wanting to know what happened because it is a true story and, like, there is something back there. But, like, if you want to find that out, like, I feel like you should be able to do it on your own time. You know, you can't, obviously with, like, a fiction story, you can't, like, say, like, oh, what happened to Paget and Cameron after the movie ended? But, I mean, you could with this one. So that's even less of a reason to include it, you know?
I don't know why you would want to know what happened to the people and He's All That, but to each their own. And, I mean, say you are super committed to having this text ending. Just put it as an end credits thing. If people are that devoted to your movie, they're still gonna be sitting there. Like, you don't and also, like, you chose this specific moment in history or in someone's life, and that's the story you're telling. So, you didn't say all the things that happened to them beforehand. Like, there's no movie that opens with a text beginning saying, so-and-so was born on this date, they did this and this thing. No, you show that throughout the movie.
But there is a lot of movies that start with, like, really lengthy intros, like you got, like, Star Wars, and you got, like, The Hunger Games, and, like,
Okay, but those are fiction.
Yeah, but, like, I feel like it should apply kind of similarly to both, you know? In a way.
Yeah.
But no, I see where you're coming from, though. I personally, I mean, no hate to, like, Star Wars and everything, because, like, I get that there needs to be some world building for, like, like, if you're in a completely different universe, I get it. Like, give us a little bit of an epilogue, give us a little bit of a prologue, and stuff, like, just to establish your universe. But, I'm not, like, I think that you're picking a point in time, like you said, to tell your story. That's the story you're telling. And then, we don't like to see rushed dialogue or a rushed scene or anything. And then you're gonna shove, like, years worth of history into, like, a paragraph or something of like, aerial text on a black screen at the end of your movie. I mean, it's just so unnecessary. I don't want to say it's lazy, because it just doesn't need to be there. You know, it's not like it's a thing that is necessary to the story that they just didn't put enough effort into. It's just not even necessary. It's like if this were an essay or something that somebody was writing, I would be like, you could just cut that whole chunk out because we don't need it, you know? And I don't know, it bugs me. It just irks me when things just decide to be like, oh, you loved our story? Well, guess what? Here's some text for you to read. Okay, bye. That's the last thing you're gonna remember from this movie.
Yeah, and in defense of, like, Star Wars, at least, like, that builds character for the movie, and, like, it has become iconic. Like, it worked out, at least. But, like, I think it's safe to say that the text ending of Worth will not be iconic and not instantly recognizable as the Star Wars intro. And I know that's not the same for every movie with a text beginning either, but it's just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I'm gonna have to sit through a lot more of these, like, text endings as more movies that are based on true stories come out. But, like, it's gonna bug me every time, man. I'm sorry. It's just one of my movie pet peeves, I guess. I don't know.
You're gonna have to make your own movie based off of a true story and then not do it and have to be a trendsetter. Because the movie's gonna be so good that people are gonna be like, oh, we gotta do this because Ava did that.
People are gonna watch to the end and they're gonna be like, wow, that told a true story that was satisfying, and they ended it on screen. And you know what? I'm kind of interested in what happened to those characters. I'm gonna take my cell phone and look it up myself on my own time, instead of sitting through a abridged version of the rest of the history of these characters' lives on screen. Because she decided it wasn't necessary. Because it's not. Because I have my cell phone.
I have a question. Did Ma Rainey's end
it
with a text
did
ending? Because I know it showed
it did,
pictures.
and the only text it ended with that I liked was dedicated to Chadwick Boseman. Okay, all of the rest of it, I'm like, okay, fine, let's not. I mean, the only thing that I liked about that one being at the end was because I didn't know that it was a true story until the movie finished. But, and I did like that it included pictures too. If you're gonna do text, you gotta put pictures in so that we can see that your casting was good. If your casting sucked, don't put pictures and don't put text. But if you have to put text, you gotta include pictures. And if your pictures don't match your cast, I'm gonna be kind of annoyed. So, yeah, so you gotta pick your battles to fight, man.
Wait, so why didn't you like the Hillbillyology one?
Because I just didn't like it. I mean, the pictures didn't really, like, help. Or, just because it has pictures doesn't mean I'm gonna like it. You know? But, like, if you're gonna do it, pictures might help, perhaps. But, like, come on, man. I like how we've just went on...
Okay, I see here in my voice.
I like how we just went on, like, a 10-minute rant on ending movies with text.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be, like, a 5-minute thing.
You were like, do you want to explain to me what that means? And I was like, okay, everybody. Never end with a text message. Like, come on, dude. It's just annoying because you can do so much better. You know, like, I mean, if you're gonna do something like that, you just gotta commit. If you wanted to show us them working on other things, have your actors do it. That's what they're there for. They're there so you don't need to make somebody type. That makes no sense. But you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Thank you. But anyways, before I continue to to rant about text endings for another like hour and a half, I think we worked through the gist of this movie enough. So thank you so much if you made it this far. We really love and respect you. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment to tell us what you thought about the movie. We'd love to have a little talk with you guys, because we don't really have any lives, and your engagement really helps the channel, and it makes us very happy when you do that. So thank you very much. If you are just here on YouTube because you feel like being on YouTube and you actually like to listen to the podcast on like Spotify or something, we're on there too. Just check the description. There's all our links. And if you're on something that's not YouTube, hello, you can probably follow us wherever you are. If you do that, we would love and respect you even more. And if you want to get more content from us, you can hop over to YouTube and follow us where we do other videos. We make other kinds of content. It's basically all movie, TV related, but we make like actual videos, which is pretty fun. You can follow us on Twitter where we talk about like we just say positive things about movies we see, or just like other little thoughts that pop into mostly my head. And then you can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We haven't really been active on there that much lately, but we will be. If you follow us on all of these places, you will not miss any of the cool things that we have planned for the future. We have a couple things up our sleeve that we're working on. Stay tuned because they're works in progress. And we really hope you stick around for them. So yeah, like I said, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And that's all for this week, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Jenna, anything to add?
You know, sometimes I go to make a joke for these things, but this isn't really a movie that I'm gonna make too many jokes about. Just check it out. It's a decent, solid movie. And it was good. Just check it out.
Okay, bye!